It is known that wisdom has always been sought by those who search for answers about the laws of philosophy and nature. However, as Socrates once reminded us, the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. Translations of ancient texts have been conducted by many philosophers, including the German scholar Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, who believed, "We learn from history that we do not learn from history." Such works have allowed profound ideas to travel across cultures and generations. The Russian writer and thinker Leo Tolstoy also sought knowledge from ancient writings. Known for his deep reflections on life and morality, Tolstoy once wrote, "Everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself." Similarly, the founder of the Indian Republic, political and spiritual leader Mahatma Gandhi, studied the wisdom of past ages. Gandhi himself once remarked, "The seeker after truth should be humbler than the dust." Throughout history, the quest for wisdom remains one of humanity's greatest endeavors. As Confucius once advised, by 3 methods we may learn wisdom. First, by reflection, which is noblest. Second, by imitation, which is easiest. And third, by experience, which is the bitterest. During modern times, Vedic knowledge was translated from Sanskrit by the Indian religious writer Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. As Prabhupada himself once stated, religion without philosophy is sentiment, or sometimes fanaticism, while philosophy without religion is mental speculation. His works aim to bridge both, preserving the essence of Vedic wisdom. Ancient pages of knowledge were preserved and passed down through Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada and his disciples, ensuring that spiritual teachings remained accessible. However, as the Bhagavad Gita itself declares, "Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself." Bhagavad Gita 4.7. Over time, distortions and alterations were introduced. As George Orwell aptly noted, the most effective way to destroy people is to deny and obliterate their own understanding of their history. Texts that once carried unfiltered truth became subject to interpretation, change, and sometimes even manipulation. Yet, as Prabhupada reminded his followers, one should not try to understand Bhagavad Gita or any other Vedic literature by mental speculation. One must approach a bona fide spiritual master. It is impossible to deny that the entire world has always had access to the truth, but many have struggled to understand or accept it. As the Bible states, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." John 1:5. Even today, many remain unaware of this knowledge. As Plato once said, "We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light." The writings of the ancient sages were partially compiled into texts such as the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavata Purana, the Bhagavad Gita, the 6th part of the Mahabharata, forming the foundation of Hindu philosophy, and the Upanishads, one of the core sacred texts of Krishna's teachings, among others. As Krishna himself declares in the Bhagavad Gita, "I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts." Bhagavad Gita 10.8. This knowledge has always been available, yet only those willing to seek it with sincerity have truly grasped it. As Lao Tzu wrote in the Tao Te Ching, "When the student is ready, the teacher will appear." The journey of wisdom is not about access, it is about understanding. However, it should be noted that the Vedas are not a religious scripture in the conventional sense, nor are they myths or legends. They represent a system of knowledge rather than a religious doctrine. As Albert Einstein once remarked, "Science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind." The Vedas, in their essence, bridge both, offering not just spiritual guidance, but also insights into the nature of reality. Some scholars refer to the Vedas not merely as an ancient book, but as a fundamental source of life on Earth, containing descriptions of advanced technologies. Nikola Tesla was known to have drawn inspiration from Vedic texts, particularly in his understanding of energy and resonance. In modern times, this may seem unbelievable. Yet, as Arthur C. Clarke famously stated, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Even in the Rig Veda, one of the oldest known texts, we find verses that seem to describe cosmic events and celestial mechanics with astonishing precision. As the text itself declares, there was neither non-existence nor existence then. There was neither the realm of space nor the sky which is beyond. Rig Veda 10:129-1. This poetic yet profound contemplation echoes the very questions modern science continues to explore. For a long time, many considered ancient events to be myths, until archaeological excavations provided geological evidence of their historical reality. As Mark Twain once said, "Truth is stranger than fiction, but it is because fiction is obliged to stick to possibilities. Truth isn't." In the first half of the 20th century, excavations were conducted in the Indus Valley, revealing the existence of advanced societies far earlier than previously thought, an ancient city with developed infrastructure. As Carl Sagan observed, somewhere, something incredible is waiting to be known. The remains of a giant humanoid skeleton were also discovered, which, according to preliminary data, belonged to a human being of enormous size, estimated to have lived thousands of years ago. This calls to mind the words of the Bible. In those days, there were giants on earth. Such discoveries challenge conventional history and remind us of Shakespeare's timeless words. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. The past continues to reveal its secrets, and what was once dismissed as legend is increasingly supported by evidence. As Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, wisely noted, "Once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth." In Indian tradition, historical records were mainly preserved through oral transmission rather than written texts. However, many scholars argue that due to climatic conditions, ancient documents and materials did not survive. As Herodotus, the father of history, once said, "Great deeds are not forgotten, but the means of remembering them may be lost." The impermanence of physical records has led to gaps in our understanding of ancient civilizations. Archaeological research indicates that human civilizations existed for thousands of years, but were often destroyed by cataclysms. As Plato famously wrote in reference to Atlantis, "In a single day and night of misfortune, the island of Atlantis disappeared into the depths of the sea." This pattern of destruction and rebirth echoes throughout history. Even the Bible reflects this theme, stating in Ecclesiastes 1:9, "What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun." Civilizations have risen and fallen, leaving behind only fragments of their existence, waiting to be rediscovered. The past is far more mysterious than we imagine. As T.S. Eliot once said, "Time present and time past are both perhaps present in time future." What we uncover today may be the key to understanding the cycles of history that continue to shape humanity. The Vedas are considered the most ancient sacred texts of humanity, which Indian scholars refer to as apurusheya, meaning not created by man. According to Indian tradition, the true author of these scriptures is God. The sages of antiquity merely listened to them and began to pass them down orally. As the Bhagavad Gita states, "I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivasvan, and Vivasvan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind." Bhagavad Gita 4.1. The first transmission of the Vedas occurred in deep antiquity, thousands of years ago. As Swami Vivekananda once said, "The Vedas teach that the soul is divine, only held in the bondage of matter. Perfection will be reached when this bond will burst." This knowledge, passed through generations, formed the foundation of spiritual and philosophical thought in India. Many modern historians are skeptical of these ancient traditions, yet they acknowledge their significant influence on civilization. As Voltaire, the French philosopher, noted, "It does not require great art or magnificently trained eloquence to prove that the Vedas are the most precious gift for which the West has ever been indebted to the East." Even the German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer admired the wisdom of the Vedas, stating, "In the whole world, there is no study so beneficial and so elevating as that of the Upanishads. It has been the solace of my life. It will be the solace of my death." Whether viewed as divine revelation or profound philosophy, the Vedas continue to shape human thought, transcending time and skepticism alike. As the Rig Veda declares, truth is one, sages call it by different names. Rig Veda 1.164.46. Vedic Sanskrit serves as the primary linguistic and philosophical tool of the Indian tradition. The oldest known written records in this language date back several thousand years. As Max Müller, the German Indologist, once said, "Sanskrit is the greatest language of the world." Historically, it was used in both political and religious spheres, shaping the foundations of governance, philosophy, and spirituality in ancient India. The Aryans were a people who inhabited the region of ancient India and Iran around 5000 to 7000 BCE. Since these peoples had cultural and linguistic similarities, researchers believe they once belonged to a single ancient civilization. Even Western scholars have acknowledged the significance of this ancient civilization. Will Durant, the American historian, observed, "India was the mother of our philosophy, of much of our mathematics, of the ideals embodied in Christianity, of self-government and democracy. In many ways, Mother India is the mother of us all." These ancient cultures, once thought to be separate, may have shared far more than language. They may have shared a worldview, a way of life, and a deep-rooted connection to the mysteries of existence. As Friedrich Schlegel, the German philosopher, wrote, "The wisdom of the Brahmins surpasses all the wisdom of Europe." The highest ideals of the Vedic religion are unselfishness and renunciation. Some scholars argue that the Aryans were not indigenous to the Indian subcontinent, but migrated there. The Vedas describe the Aryans as followers of the Vedic religion, Sanatana Dharma, distinguishing them from non-Aryan peoples who were often called mlechas, barbarians. Early Vedic texts divide Indian society into three primary groups: Brahmins, priests and scholars; Kshatriyas, warriors and rulers; and Vaishyas, merchants and artisans. The Aryans are portrayed as protectors of Vedic civilization, tasked with preserving its wisdom. As Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, according to the three modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the four divisions of human society are created by me. Bhagavad Gita 4.13. This structured order was not just about hierarchy, but about maintaining balance in society. As Chanakya, the ancient Indian philosopher, wisely said, "Education is the best friend. An educated person is respected everywhere. Education beats the beauty and the youth." It was through this understanding that Aryan civilization sustained itself, ensuring the continuation of Vedic knowledge across generations. The role of the Aryans as custodians of the Vedic tradition continues to be a subject of historical debate, yet their influence remains undeniable. Some modern linguistic studies suggest that Sanskrit is one of the most sophisticated and structured languages ever known. It is richer in vocabulary than Greek and more precise in grammatical structure. As the linguist Sir William Jones famously stated, the Sanskrit language, whatever be its antiquity, is of a wonderful structure, more perfect than Greek, more copious than Latin, and more exquisitely refined than either. It shares similarities with ancient European languages, particularly in verb conjugation and syntax, leading many linguists to believe that both Sanskrit and these languages derived from a common ancient source. This connection forms the basis of what is known today as the Indo-European language family. As Friedrich Schlegel, the German philosopher, remarked, "Everything without exception is of Indian origin." According to some theories, the Indo-Aryans were part of a large migration movement that led them to settle in India, influencing the region's culture, language, and traditions. The Rig Veda states, "May noble thoughts come to us from all directions." Even modern thinkers have acknowledged the depth of Sanskrit's linguistic and philosophical contributions. As Ralph Waldo Emerson once wrote, The Vedas are the most remarkable work of the human mind and a colossal monument of the past. The term Aryan was used in ancient times when people called themselves by this name. But what does it really mean? It is believed that the term was not used in an ethnic sense, but rather as a designation for a social or spiritual class. As Sri Aurobindo explained, the Aryan is not merely a man of noble birth, but of noble nature, a fighter for light and truth against darkness and falsehood. Vedic texts often describe their cosmic origin, suggesting that they were not simply a race, but a spiritual lineage. As the Rig Veda states, the divine singers with their thoughts found the hidden light. This implies that the Aryan identity was tied to enlightenment, knowledge, and a quest for truth, rather than to any particular ethnicity. Even the Bhagavad Gita speaks of noble qualities associated with Aryan nature. Krishna tells Arjuna, "Do not yield to this degrading impotence, O son of Pritha. It does not befit you. Cast off this petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy." Bhagavad Gita 2.3. This reflects the Aryan ideal: courage, wisdom, and righteousness. The theory of invasion was actively promoted during the colonial rule of the British Empire. British scholars turned to Sanskrit texts to study the local laws, hoping to establish control over the population through legal and cultural means. Sri Aurobindo pointed out, "The chief cause of India's weakness is not subjection, nor poverty, nor a lack of material resources, but the decline of thought and the loss of the noble ideal." Mahatma Gandhi once observed, "A nation's culture resides in the hearts and in the soul of its people." The British sought to reshape that cultural foundation, believing that controlling historical narratives would reinforce their rule. As Swami Vivekananda famously said, "The Europeans are in the habit of translating Sanskrit words by their equivalents in Western languages, but no such equivalent exists." Even Will Durant, an American historian, acknowledged the impact of colonial distortions. The British conquest of India was the invasion and destruction of a high civilization by a trading company utterly without scruple or principle. Yet despite these efforts, the essence of the Vedas remained intact. As the Rig Veda declares, truth alone triumphs, not falsehood. And over time, as more scholars and practitioners delve deeper into Sanskrit and Vedic philosophy, the true meanings continue to emerge, free from colonial-era misinterpretations. According to the theory of human civilization presented in the Vedas, there were once great and lesser races. Whether one believes this claim depends on how one interprets the texts. As the Bhagavad Gita states, "The wise see that there is no distinction between a learned and gentle Brahmin, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater." Bhagavad Gita 5.18. This suggests that true greatness was not defined by birth, but by knowledge and wisdom. And yet, what do we actually know about history? Some argue that a people who carried such advanced spiritual and technological knowledge could not have been primitive in daily life. Swami Vivekananda recognized the advanced nature of ancient Indian civilization, stating, "It is in the Vedas that we find the idea of universal religion blazing up." Nikola Tesla, clearly influenced by Vedic thought, once said, "The gift of mental power comes from God, divine being, and if we concentrate our minds on that truth, we become in tune with this great power." The Aryans, far from being a primitive people, were the custodians of profound wisdom that influenced generations to come. In 1920, excavations in India uncovered the ancient cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro. Archaeologist John Marshall, who led the excavations of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, famously remarked, "These discoveries established the existence, at a remote period, of a highly developed civilization which had completely disappeared from human memory and whose real nature and affinities are still uncertain." This challenges earlier assumptions that ancient societies were primitive. The Harappan civilization was estimated to have had a population of approximately 650,000 people, making it one of the largest early urban centers. The Harappan people developed precise weights, measurement systems, and drainage techniques that were ahead of their time. Archaeologist Gregory L. Possehl, an expert on the Indus Valley Civilization, wrote, "The people of the Indus civilization achieved a level of sophistication in city planning and urban organization that was not seen again until the rise of the Roman Empire more than 2,000 years later." The Harappan civilization was not a mere myth. It was a thriving center of culture, commerce, and knowledge that continues to intrigue scholars to this day. We will finish this episode with an apt quote by Albert Einstein, who, reflecting on the depth of ancient Indian knowledge, stated, "We owe a lot to the Indians who taught us how to count, without which no worthwhile scientific discovery could have been made." Thanks for watching. There will be another episode in this series in the next day or two.